happening now. Okay, cool. So let me open up my, not this one, this one. Okay. So yeah, page view events are served by front-end tracking. Okay, so I checked this from even the backend events are served through the front-end snowplow.
So I think do it that way. So since we are recording, maybe we just give a short summary what we are trying to do. So if everyone is watching it, it will be like jumpstart. So we are trying to add information about the feature flags and request duration, memory consumption, additional context of like request execution, I guess, to the snowplow tracking, which then helps to better produce dashboards around this information. And the question is where to place this bits of information and how to do so. And your proposal, Eduardo, was to use the page view events because they are tracked automatically on every page display. So basically, at least for the website application, everywhere within the request context, excluding the API, I guess, because this would be another challenge which would probably need to consider if we need to track also API. In that endeavor, the page views will not suffice our need. But maybe let's focus on page view events as the MVC right now, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so a little bit more context. So if I go into our logs, for example, I have over here already the CPU, how much time it was on the CPU. We already have this information. It's just on the logs and not in snowplow, which makes it really hard to parse and create better tooling based on this information. So my idea is to piggyback on an existing event that we already have, so that then we can use these events for observability rather than just monitoring. So some examples, and yeah, this is where we want to eventually end up with.
And now we can get back to your question from the beginning of the video. So even the backend events use the snowplow front-end tracking. I think that the intuition is right, but to be more precise, we have single snowplow collection fleet or collection pipeline that resides in the AWS. So in that sense, we have single snowplow endpoint that collects every request that reports event. Events are sent as the HTTP request to this collection endpoint, and it's the same endpoint for both front-end and back-end events. However, to be precise, back-end events are not tracked somehow via JavaScript in the front-end application layer. They are using only the same collection fleet, but the requests are sent through the separate Ruby process running on the server, rather than being sent from the client browser. I don't know if that answers your questions or
exactly. So the page view is the front end, but you mentioned there's something being called on the back end with a different pipeline, but through the request. Which I think would make more sense because all this information is native to the backend side, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, what would be the point where this is added?
So I think that there are two points or two things to consider here, because I understand why, because it's essentially this is a backend data, like the feature flags are stored in the database, the CPU memory or memory consumption are just the server attributes. However, on the front-end layer, every request that comes from front-end is tracked to the page view. This is not the case on the backend tracking. The backend tracking only tracks struct event on which are deliberately or explicitly instrumented by the developers. So we don't have this broad coverage on the backend layer yet. It will probably be possible, especially with the application controller, how the Rails handles the request serving, so probably provide some kind of middleware wrapped around every request in the application controller. But that would be, I would say, far-reaching change in terms of the impact, because now we're gonna double the number of the events that we are collecting, or maybe not the double, but significantly increase, like I know, maybe by 1/3, because right now it's like only on the front end, and it would be mirrored in the back end.
Okay.
So I would advise being cautious here, because it can have a really big impact, and we probably will need to scale. We can scale the collection pipeline, but it would need to require some work upfront, like provide more kinesis streams or shards, etc., in order to handle this load. But if it's possible to start with the page view events, I would suggest to use them, because they are already there. They are collected, and there's no issue with that. And we're just adding a couple more bits of information to those events, rather than just populating just brand new duplicated one, if that makes sense.
That sounds fun to me. I'm happy to start with something small. So just to get some idea, the scale over here that we're tracking for this is about 2,000 hits per 15 minutes. So 1,000 hits per hour. So it's not that many events.
All right, then it would be okay, I guess, because we are like 50 millions of events per day. So not that big of a percent. So in that sense, it could be okay. So if you are more inclined to stick to the backend layer, we can consider sending some events from.
I have no particular love for starting for the. It's just that it feels a bit weird. Send this information to the front end so that it is sent to the backend.
Right. Okay. Okay. That makes sense to me.
But I think it's fine if we start like this. We test it out, see if there's actual use case for this, if developers want this kind of tooling, and then we complicate afterwards. I don't think this is going to be too much on top of it. We can test it out. We can run this. We can put this behind a feature flag. We already have a feature flag actually running for this, so we can control for the impact. I'm fine doing on page view right now, if that means that's the easiest way for us to see the results and see if this is worth it.
Yeah, I think that we can like with this scale, probably both options are okay. Still with the backend side, we should be more cautious. If you want to wrap around every request, even if not send the event, you should need to be careful to wrap around every request, check the state of feature flag, because this is again high impact change that touches every place in GitLab basically. So reducing the scope is probably a good idea here. So let's stick to the page view events, which are already there.
Let's do that then. So you have here that the standard context is populated over here. It's snowplow. It's over here.
Yeah, this is like a bunch of links. So maybe because I didn't really brought too much context there, because I was like preparing for our conversations. I was like, okay, just notes more for me. Then as I explained, and there will be probably more that will make sense also for you. But just by looking at this information, there seems to be kind of wrapped up or like represent some concept of, like, I would say, application state or like something like that. And I thought that it would be good to express them as this entity that they are packaged together, rather than because like we are in the page view event, we are saying, okay, we visit this page and it was that kind of experiment, and it could be kind of surprising to see, oh, and suddenly we have some CPU. Like, why we have CPU right now? So there's a way of representing or like adding additional information and representing as an entity in the snowplow events, which is the custom context. And custom contexts are just the JSON objects with the schema, as you are looking at this, one of them right now, which defines them and can be added to the event regardless what type of event it is. The main advantage of them being provided in this more formalized way is that it's kind of like with the types dynamically and statically typed languages. With this version schemas for the context, you get reliable, stable interface for the downstream system to use. So later on, when this information reaches through the collection pipeline, which is the data warehouse, with this formalized schema, it's easier to build a table out of it, extract it, and then use it rather than just try to parse some bits of information scattered in a different events, if that makes sense. So that's why I wanted to propose, like, let's try to use the context here. And then it's the other benefit, it would be this context then could be reused. So like when it's proved that page view events works, then it's like, let's say, okay, we have this context, let's use this context on the backend, or even we can create this context on the backend layer and just populate it from the backend to the front end to report it right now. And then when it's like, okay, now it's the time to take it a step further, let's add it directly from the backend to the event.
Yeah, it does have a bit of quite a few properties, so it's going to be a little bit of manual work to get all of them. Where's the here? So I think it's about 20 different parameters that we can collect.
Yeah,
we can start with a few and then evolve, just so that we have the pipeline built first and then move on. But okay, so first step, I'm gonna add here, first step.
So there's one more thing that I
one.
wanted before we jump into the steps maybe. So I was trying to find the most GitLab way or iterative way. So I proposed the context, but it's as I described, the advantages of having this standardized or like statically typed schema, which provides stable interface. There's a way, I believe there's a way to get iteratively to this stage as well. So I would say that the first step, for the first step, you could consider using the extra parameter in the GitHub standard context. Is just another context that is already added to every event. Page view event, page ping event, every backend event. So it's basically this context is added everywhere, and it consists some shared information for GitLab. Like for example, was the front-end layer, was the backend layer, what was the plan of the namespace that is triggered this event if it's available, what project was it, what namespace, etc. And this standard context has one wildcard attribute, which calls extra, that's able to ingest any JSON object. So my suggestion here is, like, as a first step, let's add it to this extra attribute whenever appropriate. So at the beginning, you can focus on like collecting this bits of information somewhere, like, I don't know, write the Rails helper that will inject them in the view, and then pass it to this extra. Once you see, okay, it's going through the extra, I see how the structure looks. It's and you can even ask, I don't know, the users, like, do you like this structure? Should I rename it? You don't really have to go through the struggle of defining the schema in the beginning. Once you have like good idea of what the schema would be useful, then you can go, okay, now I can extract this extra to standalone context and then build the tables out of it and starts to reusing it everywhere. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think it makes sense for the beginning, especially since there are not many users in the beginning, so we can iterate a little bit faster, and then when we have a better idea of what we want, we evolve into a proper schema.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good idea. Do you have an example of where this extra is already being used for?
So this is in the links. You can take a look at
over here, maybe.
Yeah.
Under context.
And
okay, no, this is a standard one.
Yeah, and this so extra is a part of the standard one. This is one of the
Mhm.
attributes. There's few strictly defined one, like the namespace and project, and basically everything else that you throw at it would be wrapped up into the extra as a JSON
Okay,
object.
over here.
Yeah, and you can see like this is the last catch-all method argument,
Mhm.
and it's passed to the context and reported
Okay.
within. And I think if you follow the link, yeah, the second one with the partial for snowplow Haml.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see that this is included in every page, which basically triggers the page view event or prepares the bits for the page view events.
Okay.
So I think that this is a place where you can consider adding this feature flag or like passing something into the extra attribute just to convey the information that you wanted to add.
Yeah. We control the feature flag tracking through an ops feature flag, a meta feature flag. So we can control what's the percentage of requests you're actually tracking. We can piggyback on that feature flag so it doesn't add something else. So instead of just tracking, okay, are we going to track the feature flag? Or we can also add, okay, let's track everything on that percentage. And then we can fine tune how much. I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, now let me open this one over there. So not PyCharm. I have a few too many. It's over here.
Yeah, this one.
It's this one. Okay, so I need to pass this. I'm gonna look later onto this.
Yeah, so it generates and stores the standard context information on the line 15 into the window variable that is later on picked up by tracking methods.
So here I would just pass an extra and then build extra, which would be defined somewhere.
Yeah,
or
but
no,
you don't even need to call extra. Yeah, it would be
just pass the keys.
Yeah,
all the keys that I need to do.
Yeah.
And then have it somewhere fetched.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then this will already send over there, and I would be able to fetch from check from in snowplow and fetch those information and create dashboards on top of it, right? It will take a little bit more work, I believe, because then this extra is probably going to be stored in a single column on the snowplow table, and then I have to parse that. But that's not really a problem, I think. We evolve later into something that it's more, it might be that it's not really even necessary. This is the kind of data that might be better non-structured rather than structured. But we'll see. And oh yeah, no, this is perfectly fine. This is actually what I wanted to know, where if I add this, that will all already pull. So I'm gonna change this code and add this
right,
and then I'm gonna change this one over here. Yeah, so that link that you shared over here,
I would still suggest to go with the standalone context, even if it would have its own extra. So even if you would define your own like wildcard attribute there to allow people to extend it the same as the GitLab standard context, because this extra, it's wildcard for everyone, every team. So it's like it can be that somebody will add some additional things there. So parsing it may be quite challenging because it can vary very heavily on how it's used. It's a good first iteration, but to have something more stable, I would still suggest to use the context later that is dedicated. Like for example, the growth team is using GitLab experiment context, which works this quite similar to the standard context, and just it's sent additionally, and they have full control how it works.
Yeah.
But as the beginning, at the first iteration, I think the extra is the best way, just to keep the ball rolling, get a better understanding, and then build up top of it.
Perfect. That works good for me. I think I have enough to start working on this already. At least exploring. And
Right.
then if I have questions or something, then I can ask on the chat. Sounds good.
Right. Yeah. And once it's done, we can like have another pairing session where we can like go to the data warehouse actually, and I can like maybe show you around how to extract this information, parse it, and move from that point.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna create a more and work on this a bit, and then I will get back. Cool.
Awesome.
I'm gonna stop sharing now. Then I'll share the video later, and that's it. So stop sharing. Anything else you wanna talk about?
No, I'm good. I'm glad that we find a solution for a problem. So
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted. Like the one place where I could change the code where it would be reflected everywhere, over there, because then I can pull the information from the backend and get this going. Because it's I think this can make a lot of difference on how we do code, and hopefully that makes feature flags more interesting than they currently are.
yeah, it could be really. I think that in the long run it can be used in many ways because you can even tie the state of a feature flag. So the imaginary scenario, some team provides some kind of added, I don't know, new version of merge request widget, and they turn the feature flag on or off, and they see that there's more page view on the merge request once they turned on, or they suddenly drops, so people are not able to go there, and they can start seeing why is that.
Yeah.
So it can tie the product information about the feature to the, I would say, implementation information, which is a feature flag.
Yeah, that's my goal. I had this before when and I miss it so much. Like it feels I have feature flag, but I don't know the impact of that feature flag really. I don't know if it's adding errors or not. I don't know if it's adding performance impact or not. And this, I think, I can do a little bit to solve that. Hopefully that works out as I am expecting. It never does, but hopefully it does this time. For the first time in 10 years of.
Fingers crossed. About
Okay.
performance, there's this one bell that ranks for me. Just give me a moment to find the right link, because I believe we collect already some additional context with web performance information, which may be another interesting bit to tie these things together. So it probably already have information about how long the request ran and some additional things. I haven't looked into it much, to be honest, but I know it exists. Okay, it's not even there. Is it on the Snowflake data warehouse? Maybe it's just some. Okay, I will maybe not just keep you looking at me while look for the bits of information. I will just send you a link asynchronously when I found it.
Okay. Okay. Then when you find it, share with me, because then I can put in, because right now I only have the backend metrics, and it will be interesting to have the front end as well, like errors in the front end or something like that.
I don't think they collect the errors, but
Well,
I will not bet my small finger on it, Evan. I know that there's collect some performance metrics, but that's all I know. So I just need to make some digging to share it with you.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot for the conversation. That put me on the right direction. I'll look into the code and see if I can do, and ask you if I have any questions. Whatever.
Awesome. Good luck and see you in the future.
Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye bye.